So today we are going to discuss the ISER aptitude test which was conducted in the year 2017. Okay. Now as you might be knowing that ISER aptitude test consists of 4 sections, one section each for physics, chemistry, mathematics and biology, and the total number of questions is 60. And that means you have to solve 15 questions per subject, and it has been the pattern for 17, 18 and 19. So what I have done here is I have gone through the questions which were asked for this particular year, and the paper which I could find, the questions were based on the following topics. The mathematics section was the third one. They call it section C. The first one was based on trigonometry, and you have to solve a quadratic equation at the end to come up with the correct answer. Okay. Then the second question or second MCQ was based on functions. It actually asks you to find the total number of onto functions defined from one set to the other. So you are also required to use the counting principles. Okay. Then the third question is also based on functions, but it also requires you to know what increasing and decreasing functions are, basically the derivative, and it also introduces you to a topic which we call functional equations. Okay, so I'll come to that when we see the sum, what functional equations mean. Okay. Then the fourth one, question number 34, it is a very simple question based on graphs of circles and conic sections. In this sum they have given you an ellipse, okay, and you have to find the points of intersection of circle and that particular conic, the number of points. So if you know how to draw the graphs, then certainly you can answer this question very easily. Question 35 is a standard binomial theorem question. Okay, how to find the r plus 1th term. Then in question 36, you are given a cubic equation and a relation among its 3 roots. Okay, the condition says that the roots are in arithmetic progression, and using the relation between the roots of any polynomial equation and the coefficients of the polynomial, you have to find the common difference of that particular arithmetic progression. So again, a very simple question testing your basic knowledge of theory of equations. Question number 37, a standard limits and continuity problem based on L'Hospital's rule. In 38, the first part of the question involves set theory, or the how to find subsets of any set. So it requires you to know that if our set has n elements, then there are 2 raised to n subsets, and after that the question switches to probability. Then question number 39 is based on differential equations, and particularly it is based on systems of differential equations. So I'll talk about that later when we actually solve the question. 40th one is again based on functions. Then question number 41, it asks you to locate the local maximum and local minimum of a function. I guess that function is sin x plus 1 upon sin x. Okay, so we'll anyways come to that. Then in 42 we have a definite integral whose value is 0, and we have to identify the zeros within the limits of integration. Question number 43 is based on complex numbers, but I have solved it using a shortcut trick which does not require you to know anything about complex numbers at all. Okay. Question number 44 is based on properties of determinants and of course properties of matrices. And then question number 45 is again based on definite integrals and limits. So overall, the picture is telling us that functions is a very important topic as far as this particular paper is concerned. All right, and we know that entire calculus is based on functions, so it has to be important. But what I found out is even applications of derivatives is also one of the topics. For example, in question number 33, they want you to know what increasing functions are and what decreasing functions are, and then again in question number 41 they have a separate, I would say a separate question on finding the extreme values of a function. So functions and their extreme values were two most frequently asked problem types as far as 2017 math section is concerned. And at the same time, what I found out is a couple of questions can also be solved very easily if you know how to graph a function. Okay, and in the knowledge of, in the language of engineering mathematics, we don't call graphing a function because we do not always have access to the graphing calculators, so we call it curve sketching. So we prepare a rough sketch of the curve showing all important properties like how many times does a curve intersect the x-axis or y-axis, okay, does it have any kind of symmetry, does it have any asymptote, and so on. Okay, so that is what we do in curve sketching, and there are certain rules of curve sketching. Okay, when is the graph symmetric about y-axis, when is the graph symmetric about x-axis, and so on. So if you know those rules, even then you can solve these questions. Okay, so this is the summary. Now we will solve each and every question. There are 15 questions, and as usual I'll tell you the main idea on which the question is based. Then we will solve it, and then again I'll tell you the topics on which the question was based. Okay, so with that introduction, let us start our discussion. Yes, other thing is that the questions that I got, they are basically in the image format, JPEG format, so the clarity of the text is not that much. Okay, but anyways, we will now start the mathematics section. So the first one is question number 31. Okay, the number of solutions of the equation 2 sine squared x plus 1 equal to 3 sine x in the open interval 0 to pi is 0, 2, 3 and 1. Now to solve this question, you basically do the following. You take the term 3 sine x, which is there on the right hand side of the equation, to the left hand side, so it acquires a negative sign here. So now you have a quadratic in sine x, that is 2 sine squared x minus 3 sine x plus 1 equal to 0, and you take a note of this particular range of x, okay, open interval 0 to pi. Otherwise this equation will have infinitely many solutions due to periodicity of sine x. Now you solve this for sine x by using the quadratic formula minus b, so 3, plus or minus root of b squared, so 9, minus 4 ac, so 4 into 2 into 1, so that is 8, 9 minus 8, 1, so sine x is 3 plus or minus 1 upon 4. So that gives us two possibilities. Possibility 1, sine x equal to 1, where we consider 3 plus 1. And although sine x equal to 1 has infinitely many solutions, we want that value of x which lies in the range 0 to pi. Okay, so there is only one such value, that is x equal to pi by 2. Yes. Now we'll go to the other root, okay, of sine x. Now this time we'll consider the negative sign, so it will be 3 minus 1, 2 upon 4 or 1 upon 2. Now sine x is 1 upon 2 for two values of x. The first one is pi by 6 or 30 degrees, as we all know, and the other one is 5 pi by 6. So if you know this allied angles formula, sine of pi minus theta is sine theta, then you can easily find the other root. Okay, so how many solutions? 3 solutions. Yes, so the correct option is C. Now the person who had uploaded this had also marked C as the right option, but don't believe in these tick marks, okay, because what I found out is some of them are wrong. Okay, so the question was easy. Now we should think, what are other ways in which this function can come in the question. Okay, so I have 2 ways for you. First, if I ask you the question, what is the period of the function y, which is 2 sine squared x plus 1 minus 3 sine x. So in this question we found out its roots, right? We equated it to 0. But if the question were, what is the period of this function? Now you know that constant function can be considered to be a function of any random period. Okay. Now what is the fundamental period of sine x? Fundamental means the smallest positive period, 2 pi. And what is the fundamental period of sine squared x? It is pi. So you have to now consider the largest among all, and that is 2 pi. So the fundamental period of this function is 2 pi. You shouldn't consider the smallest, you should consider the largest among all periods. Okay, so the period is 2 pi. That means if you look at the graph of this function, after every integral multiple of 2 pi, you will find that the graph repeats itself. Okay, we will verify this graphically. So that is one point that I wanted to tell you about this sum, and there is one more point, that is the same question can be reframed in a different way. Okay, so how can they ask you the same question? They may ask you this: how many times does the graph of the function y equal to 2 sine squared x plus 1, that means the LHS of the given equation, 2 sine squared x plus 1, okay, intersect the graph of the function y equal to 3 sine x, that is the right hand side of the equation, okay, and in the open interval 0 to pi. Now this is the other way of asking what are the roots of the equation 2 sine squared x plus 1 equal to 3 sine x in 0 to pi. Okay, because see, when the graphs of these two functions meet each other, they share the same y coordinate. That means if you subtract one from the other, then you are getting 0, and that's the same thing that we have done here. When you shift 3 sine x to the other side, it acquires this negative sign. So finding the points of intersection is as good as finding the roots of the equation. So this question was based on trigonometry, as we have seen already in our review slide, and of course quadratic equations. And now we are going to verify all these things graphically. Let's go to the graph of the blue function, that is 2 sine squared x minus 3 sine x plus 1, and I have restricted the domain of this function to be in the interval 0 to pi, and as you can see, it intersects the x-axis at 3 different points: pi by 6, pi by 2 and 5 pi by 6, and these are the exact roots that we had obtained when we solved the quadratic equation. We got pi by 2 first, and then we got pi by 6 and 5 pi by 6. Okay, now let's see what happens if I remove this particular restriction. Now we will see a greater picture. Okay, so this is the graph of the entire function. Now what I'll do is I'll just measure the distance between these 2 points. This is 3 pi by 2 and this is minus pi by 2, and the distance between these 2 points is the subtraction of their x coordinates. Okay, so 3 pi by 2 minus pi by 2 is 2 pi, which means the fundamental period of this function is 2 pi. Okay, fundamental means the smallest. Now let us again put the restriction, and Now we'll go to the last point that we discussed. How many times does the graph of the function 2 sine squared x plus 1 intersect the graph of 3 sine x in the interval 0 to pi? Okay, so now our attention will not be on the blue curve but on the orange as well as the pink curves. Okay, so they intersect here pi by 6, and that corresponds to the point pi by 6 comma 0. Then both the pink and the orange functions reach their global maximum and local maximum at pi by 2. Okay, so that is the other point of intersection of them, and corresponding root is pi by 2, and then they intersect at this point 5 pi by 6, and the corresponding root is 5 pi by 6. So now we have verified everything that we could. Question number 32. For n greater than or equal to 2, the number of onto functions from the set 1, 2, so on till n to the set 1, 2 is n factorial 2 raised to n, 2 raised to n minus 1, 2 raised to n minus 2. Now to solve this problem, you should first know a standard result in functions. Okay, so let us consider two finite sets A and B, and suppose the number of elements in A is alpha and the number of elements in B is beta. Now we call the number of elements in a set its cardinality. So cardinality of A is alpha and that of B is beta. Now using the counting principles, you can easily come up with this result, that the number of functions defined from A, so A is the domain, to B, so B is the codomain, is beta raised to alpha. See, now here we are not talking about any specific function. We are interested only in knowing how many functions can we define from A to B. Okay, we are not again defining relations. Please keep that in mind. There is a difference between relation and a function. Every function is a relation, but every relation need not necessarily be a function. Okay, so the number of functions is beta to the power alpha, where beta is the cardinality of the codomain and alpha is the cardinality of the domain. Now we will go to the given two sets. We are defining the functions from 1 to till n, this set whose cardinality is n, to the set 1, 2. Okay, so its cardinality is 2. So how many functions can we define with no restrictions or no special cases? 2 raised to n. But if you read the problem carefully, what they are asking is the number of onto functions. Okay, so the total number of functions is 2 raised to n. So at this stage we can say that the number of onto functions will be less than or equal to 2 raised to n. It cannot definitely be more than that. Correct? Now we will recall the definition of onto function. Onto means the range of the function should be equal to its codomain. And onto functions are also called as surjections. Right? So what I have now done is I have calculated the number of functions which are not onto. And I have subtracted that number from 2 raised to n. Now there are only two non-onto functions. What are they? They are two constant functions. Okay, we will call them f1 and f2. So for f1 everything is mapped to the number 1, and for f2 everything is mapped to number 2. Okay, now except these two special functions or these two special cases, everything else is an onto function. Correct? Because both 1 and 2 will have at least one pre-image under the function. So the first constant function is f1 equal to 1 and the second constant function is f2 equal to 2. Okay, so there are two functions defined which are not onto. Yes, So what is the required number of functions? It is not 2 raised to n. We have to now subtract the number of functions which are not onto from 2 raised to n. So the required number of functions is 2 raised to n minus 2, and that is option D. Correct? A simple problem, but you should know this result. Otherwise you can arrive at this result by using the multiplication principle. Yes. So the topics, the primary topics on which this question was based on were functions, of course. You should know what onto functions are and what non-onto functions are. And then you should know the multiplication principle of counting, which you people study in the chapter permutations and combinations. Correct? Otherwise you can remember this result as a standard result and you can apply it whenever required. So that was question 32. Let's go to 33. Let the function f defined from the set of real numbers to the set of real numbers be a differentiable function such that f dash of 0 is 1. Okay, so the value of the derivative of this function at 0 is 1. And f of x plus y is equal to f of x into f of y for all x and y in the set of real numbers. So if you look at this equation here, this is what we call a functional equation. Because it relates one value of the function with the other. Okay, f of x plus y. If I were to find f of x plus y, then I'll find f of x and f of y individually and I'll just multiply the values so that I'll get the value of the function at x plus y. Okay, and the options are, which of the following is true? Both f and f dash are decreasing, both f and f dash are increasing, f is an increasing function but f dash is a decreasing function, f is decreasing but f prime or f dash is increasing. Now this particular question can be solved by considering a special case. Alright, now when do you have multiplication on one side and addition on the other side? In exponents and in logarithms. Okay, and the function that all of us love is the function e to the power x, the exponential function, because this function has this characteristic that it itself is its own derivative, right? F of x's derivative is f of x itself, and more importantly it also satisfies this condition that the derivative of f at 0 is 1, and it also satisfies this functional equation f of x plus y is equal to f of x into f of y. Correct? This is the law of indices. And if the function e to the power x satisfies everything that is mentioned in the problem, then its behavior will help us in deciding the true statement. Now all these statements are regarding the function f and its derivative, and we have to decide whether the functions are increasing or decreasing, and we know that exponential function e raised to x at least is always an increasing function. If you remember its graph, the graph looks like this. Okay, it just keeps on rising and negative x-axis is now its asymptote, and the point of intersection of this graph with y-axis is 0, 1. Okay, all of us know that. So f is increasing, yes, but at the same time f dash of x, which is e to the power x, is also increasing. That means the correct option is B. Not only f but also f prime or f dash are increasing functions. In general, the second derivative or nth derivative with function f are all increasing functions. Correct? So a very simple problem, but you should know what this relation means, what this functional equation means to us. Okay, if you know that, then you can easily solve this problem, and you should know the behavior of the exponential function e to the power x. So now the topics on which this MCQ is based: functions, yes. Increasing and decreasing functions, yes. Well, you can apply the derivatives test, but as I said earlier, if you know the graph of the exponential function, then you can just conclude that it is an increasing function throughout its domain. All right. Next, question number 34. The number of points of intersection of the curves x squared plus 8y squared equal to 4 and x squared plus y squared equal to 1 is 2, 1, 4, 0. See, look at this word. They are not telling you what curves are represented by these two equations. Okay, they'll just say curves, but you have to identify that the second one is a unit circle, x squared plus y squared equal to 1, centered at origin, and the first one is an ellipse. Okay, x squared plus 8y squared equal to 4. So if you divide by 4, then it will be in its standard form. X squared by 4 plus, now you will get 2y squared, right? Or y squared upon 1 by root 2 squared equal to 1. So in usual notations, a is 2 and b is 1 upon root 2. So because a is greater than b, it is a horizontal ellipse. Now what I have done is I have found out the points of intersection of this ellipse, not with the circle first, but with the coordinate axis. All right. So our ellipse intersects the x-axis at 2, 0 and minus 2, 0. You can just check it here. Substitute y equal to 0, you'll get x equal to plus or minus 2. And if you substitute x equal to 0, then you will get y squared equal to 1 upon 2 or y equal to plus 1 upon 2 or minus 1 upon root 2. So corresponding to each square root, you will get 2 points. Now we will go to the equation of circle, which is a unit circle. So we know that its points of intersection with the coordinate axis are plus or minus 1, 0 and 0, plus or minus 1. Okay, so we will now draw a rough sketch. The green curve here is the unit circle. Okay, and this point is 0, 1 and this point is 1, 0, and because the circle is symmetric and so is ellipse, it is enough to consider only the first quadrant. Okay, now where does the ellipse intersect the positive x-axis? At 2, 0. Yes, I have shown that point here. And where does it intersect the positive y-axis? 0, 1 by root 2. Now your knowledge of numbers will be now tested, because now you need to decide whether 1 upon root 2 is greater than 1 or less than 1. Alright, well, I mean, you know that now. If we have, let me write it here, if we have 2 greater than 1, then root 2 will obviously be greater than root of 1. But if you take the reciprocal, and because these numbers are positive, 1 by root 2 will be less than 1. So the point 0, 1 upon root 2 will be closer to origin than 0, 1, which means on x-axis, the point of intersection of the ellipse is to the right of that of circle. Okay, 1, 0 and 2, 0. But for y-axis, it is opposite. The point of intersection of ellipse is closer to the origin than that of the circle. So if we now draw this particular portion of the ellipse in the first quadrant, we will find that it intersects the circle once, and this is the point of intersection, and corresponding to each quadrant there will be one such point of intersection. So the total number of points is 4. That is option C. Okay, a simple problem. So this was the first method where we used the geometry to solve the problem. Now let us use algebra. That is, we will try to solve the equations of these two curves simultaneously. Okay, method 2. So in the method 2, what I have done is I have selected the equation of ellipse. Okay, and in this equation I have replaced x squared by x squared that you will get from the equation of the circle. If x squared plus y squared is 1, then x squared must be 1 minus y squared, and then I have put it here. And now we will solve this equation for y. If you solve it, then you will get y as plus or minus root of 3 by 7, and corresponding to each y value you will get 2x values. Okay, so in the method 2 you not only get the number of points, but you also get their coordinates. Now the y coordinates are plus root 3 by 7 and minus root 3 by 7. Okay, so this point has y coordinate root 3 by 7. Now you can find its x coordinate as a practice, or let's do it here now. X squared is 1 minus y squared, so 3 by 7. So x must be plus or minus root of 4 by 7 or plus or minus 2 by root 7. So we will get 4 pairs of points. So you can use whichever method you want to solve this particular MCQ. Now, of course, the topics on which this example was based on were circles, ellipses, and more importantly their graphs. Okay, now we will verify our result graphically. Yes, the green curve is the circle, the purple curve is the ellipse, and as you can see there are 4 points of intersection. Okay, we just need to now check whether our coordinates are right. Well, we know that they are correct. X equal to 2 by root 7. Yes. And what was y? Y was root of 3 by 7. Yes. You can see this particular point where the circle, the ellipse, the vertical line x equal to 2 by root 7 and the horizontal line y equal to root 3 by 7 intersect. Alright.